On this episode of Death by Adulting, first up, we discover what do penguin slapping and swiping right have to do with each other. Next, we'll discover that 90% of adulting falls into this category. You don't have to like it, you just have to do it. And last but not least, a both barrels Megan head-scratching look at who thought that was a good idea, plus much, much more. Roll the intro.
Well, welcome everyone to Death by Adulting. I'm your host, Megan Scheibner, and I'm joined here at the Death by Adulting table by my co-host and, more importantly, partner in crime, Dr. Steve Scheibner. How you doing today, Steve?
I'm doing great. Glad. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's been a lot of work to get here today.
It has been a lot of work.
And it has been, but I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so you teased some pretty exciting things in the intro. I'd skip to the last one personally if I could, but why don't we get started with what penguin slapping and swiping right have in common?
Okay, that's a good question. And one of the things I really dislike about podcasts, not to start out on a negative note, is when they tease you in the beginning about something that's coming up, and then they spend the next 25 minutes talking about something else until they get to the first topic. So
yeah, I agree.
Our intention here is to get right into at least the first issue before we start talking about other stuff. And in the tease, we talked about penguin slapping, which is a thing, and swiping right. Now,
which is a thing.
Which is a thing, right? And it really has to do with the essence of the male-female attraction. It's as old as dirt itself. You know, how do you find a mate? How do you find that life partner? How do you find somebody that you really want to spend the rest of your life with, right? All of those things, it's been a science and an art over all the years. But the penguins got it right. And the penguins, as you're going to find out in a minute, actually have something to do with our relationship and how the two of us got to meet each other. But okay, let's go back to the penguin slapping thing. Now, I'm going to show you a short video here in just a minute of some emperor penguins smacking each other around. And they're all males, right? So this is definitely a male thing. When you think about how guys, young guys especially, try to attract girls, sometimes they're kind of immature and they... our boys used to do something called sting pong.
So attractive.
Right. And sting pong was... basically they would play ping pong with their shirts off. Now remember, this is before, they're not all built, right? They're 16 years old, so they're like skinny, and all drawn
There's
in.
no hair.
No hair at all. And then if somebody missed the shot, then the other person got to take the ping pong paddle and the ball and smack the ball into them in their bare skin as hard as they could. I guess that's some sort of mating ritual. I don't know. But at any rate, the boys did all that stuff. Penguin slapping is not much different, all right? So the male penguins, they'll fight over a female by slapping each other around. And then they do, and as you're going to see in this short video, they do, the stare each other down thing that men do. That dude thing. Dude, I'm not backing down. I'm not backing down. All right, so let me show you what I'm talking about here. It's going to take me just a second to get this keyed up in the video queue, but it's worth watching. And it's only 20 seconds long. And I'm going to stop the video halfway through and show you something that's going on in the background, which is really a lot of fun. So the point is, what does penguin slapping have to do with swiping right and the male-female mating ritual? Okay, watch this. Now, it happens real quick. The slapping goes over fast. And let me put you on your screen. There we go. There's the penguins, all right? These guys, it's all dudes in the front here. And here we go, right? These guys go after each other. Slap, 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 slap. Okay, and now they do the stare each other down thing. I'm going to pause it right there. This is what dudes do. They just face off with each other, chests out, and they're just staring each other down to see who's going to be the first penguin. They kind of, backs down off of the thing here, right? So let's go back to our penguins. And I want you to watch this. There's something going on in the background of this picture. I'm going to take my cursor and just kind of run it over here. This gal in the background, and I don't know much about penguins. That could be a dude.
I don't know. She's a little chunky.
I don't know. But the whole time that these dudes have been smacking each other around, we're just going to call this a female. We're going to say she's been just preening the whole time. She's been like, checking out her hemline, and she's looking back at her rear end to make sure it's not too big, and, or maybe these days it's big enough, and she's been preening. And every once in a while, out of the corner of her eye, she watches these guys fight over her. Right?
Of course.
She's very aware of what's going on. These guys have no clue what's going on around them. Right? Let me pick up on the tape and watch what happens here. This guy right here, I think it's this one right here. He gets a little too close to this guy over here, and he gets what's for. Here we go. Right? Watch. So they're just kind of moving around. A couple guys are kind of disinterested. This guy, he gets a little peck. All right? Like, hey, dude, don't get it. And now this guy starts to speak up. Right? And as he's doing that's the equivalent of men going, dude. They're just duding each other out until finally, I guess, one of them gets the girl.
And the girls are over there going, I think he likes me.
All right. So, honey, watching the penguin slapping video and swiping right, what in the world does penguin slapping have to do with you and me?
Well, it's funny. I've always thought of you more as a chest thumper when it came to our mating ritual. But I guess I can see you as a penguin. You're even kind of dressed like one today. But so our story, because here we go on Death by Adulting, and maybe you need to know a little bit about the adults who are talking to you. So one of the things you should know about both Steve and I is we both just really love Jesus. But that was not always true. We're not your classic... got saved in Sunday school, grew up in a Christian home. We both came from a lot of bit rougher background. And I personally, by the time I was in college, was well established as you're not the boss of me. I do it my way, almost professional unsaved person, right? And but the end of my sophomore year of college, I came to know the Lord, and I came back to my college campus. And in high school, I had been involved in a parachurch organization called Young Life. Many of you probably know what Young Life is. It's still growing and expanding today. So here I am, this new Christian on my college campus. I reached out to the Young Life leaders. And that first week back at school, I think it was about the third night, the Young Life college leaders came to meet me, and they took me out to dinner. And we were rich college kids. So if you remember this, Steve, we went to a really elegant place called The Rat, short for exactly. The Rathskeller. And we sat in this dim, dark basement of this pizza place. Yeah. And that night, I sat next to, is the picture up? Here, bring the picture up, honey.
Okay.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we are. Now, by this picture, what I'm going to share, some of it had gone away, but some was obviously still there. I sat by this skinny, long-haired guy named Steve Scheibner, right? And there you see him in the picture. By this point in our relationship, the hair was gone, and honestly, it never really came back, and we never had that long hair again. Sorry about that, honey.
It hurts. I mean, I can do something about the skinny part, but the hair... It's not a deal. Yeah. We gotta look at the picture one more time.
Sorry about that. Yes, wow, okay. There we were. Right. Yes. And if you notice me in that picture, here, bring it back a minute. Right. That also was the only period in time where I had the mom mullet, right? As you see, it was not party in the front so much as big bangs in the front and party in the back, right? Oh, there are regrettable periods.
You were so adorable. It was unbelievable how adorable you are.
There are regrettable periods in the history of my hair.
I gotta throw it up one more time. Look at this. Look how adorable she is. You're just like super cute. And the point is, you're still super cute.
The cheeks right? are still there. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I sat next to that skinny, long-haired guy, Steve Scheibner. We talked all night, and at the end of the night, I told anyone who would listen, I have met the man that I am going to marry. Now, unfortunately, Steve was telling people, that new girl, Megan Pierce, she's okay, but I would never date her. And so we were at cross purposes. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah, we were at cross purposes. Yeah. And when he met me, actually, I tried to dress like a punk rocker. So that was an even different hair phase for me. But we became best friends. Now, we never dated really, but we were best friends. The first Bible study I ever did was with Steve Scheibner. The first verses I memorized were with Steve Scheibner. We would meet at 5 o'clock in the morning for a Bible study because he wanted me to learn that for a sacrifice to be a sacrifice, it has to be a sacrifice. Right? And I learned that from him. So fast forward 6 months. And I had moved in with the Young Life staff woman, and she and I were great friends, and Steve and she were great friends, and she was getting married. And at that point, I did everything with my best friend, Steve. We went out to eat together. We went bowling together. We went to Young Life meetings together. So I naturally assumed we would go to Cindy's wedding together. And about a week before the wedding, my best friend Steve said to me, oh, by the way, I'm taking my old girlfriend to Cindy's wedding. And I said, oh, cool. Yeah, that's great. But ladies, you know what I was thinking inside. I was thinking, game on, buddy. So I called the best looking guy I had ever gone out with in college. His name was Dave. And he really was good looking. You have to admit, he was good looking.
Dave was a beautiful specimen.
He was a beautiful specimen.
You hit a grand slam that night, and I just remember thinking, wow, what a beautiful human being. And it worked, honey.
Yeah.
It worked. Let me just put it that way.
A plan gone right.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Dave and I got dressed up. We went to the wedding all night. People were coming up to me saying, if you and Steve were seeing who could bring the better looking date, you won, kudos for womankind. But about 15 minutes into the reception, Dave and I left. And we left because we were bored. That's why we weren't dating anymore. We bored each other to tears. But Steve didn't know why we left. And he got to sit there all night thinking that we had gone off to have our own private date while he was back with his old girlfriend at this wedding reception.
This was a brilliant upon brilliant move on your part.
Thank you.
The leaving early thing just tore me up. I'm like, okay, where'd they go? What are they doing? Obviously they're, making out in the backseat of a car someplace. It's
because
horrible.
He's so good looking.
It's horrible. And she did this to me, and I was, yeah. Right.
Okay, really what I did was I went back to my apartment and went to bed early, but whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, bye, Dave. I'm tired. It's been nice. You're boring. So the next morning, Steve called me and he said, hey, I was thinking we could go out to lunch today. And so, we went out and had some of God's chicken. Chick-fil-A existed even back then. And he said, there's something I've been praying about for quite a while. And since 8 o'clock in the morning, I think. And he said, I think that you and I should begin dating. You have a problem with what I just said?
Keep going. Just keep going.
He said, you and I should begin dating with the goal being marriage. Now, remember, I really liked this guy. I still was telling people, I know we seem like just best friends, but I'm sure we're going to get married. So that should have been really exciting news. But there's a curveball. And please, could you put on your no judgment hat right now? See, when I was in high school, I had dated the same guy basically all the way through high school. His name was Steve. I'm a pretty symmetrical person. I like things to be even. I had 4 boys and 4 girls, and I like things lined up, and so I dated mostly Steves.
So you only dated Steves?
Yeah, pretty much. Mostly Steves.
There's something pathological about that, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, well, that can be another episode. Yeah. But we had broken up when I went to college, but once a semester we would try again. Maybe this time it's going to stick and we'll actually end up getting married. And so I had a date with him that night. It was our once a semester date. So I said to Steve Scheibner, could you hold that idea till tomorrow? Because I have a date tonight with my old boyfriend, Steve, and we can talk about this dating looking toward getting married tomorrow. And he seemed like he understood, and we ended our lunch and off I went. And 6 o'clock that night, the doorbell rang at my apartment. I opened the door. There stood Steve as it should have been, but it was the wrong Steve. It was Steve Scheibner. And I said, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm going along. And he went along on the world's most awkward date.
It was awesome. I had a great time, and you two were awkward with each other. And I spared that poor fellow.
Maybe.
I did.
You might have.
I did. Because you treated him poorly.
I did treat him poorly.
You had him wrapped around your little finger, and he kept, coming back every 6 months like a little puppy, and I'm like,
he
okay,
was nice.
That's enough of that.
He was a sweet guy.
But okay, so the point of all the penguin slapping is that was my male equivalent of the penguin slap. I showed up on your date with your guy because I had told you since 8 o'clock in the morning, right, that you were the gal for me. And it wasn't just from 8 o'clock in the morning, right? I had given that quite a bit of thought and consideration and prayer. But you know what? At the point where you go, this is it. I better get in there. I better mark my territory, right? You
did stare him down at dinner.
Yes. I've had enough of this. And you know what? And 40 years later, I'm sorry, the other Steve.
Yes,
but
here we are.
We all got on in life, and things worked out pretty good for all of us.
Here's one of my favorite things. Years later, Steve told me, he said, I woke up that morning and I thought, do I have the stomach flu? No, I like Megan.
Okay, being in love and the stomach flu have a lot in common because it's that rumbly feeling in your stomach where you go, I don't know, the back of my mouth is a little moist, and I might feel like I want to throw up, and for men especially, that I guess I'm in love.
Yeah, and we have 4 sons, and they've all come to us with that, like, I don't feel very good. I think I like, and it ended up being their wife.
Yeah. And we said to him, well, you're doomed, buddy.
Better pick out the ring.
It's like the Lion King in that song, your old pal is doomed.
Yeah. Yes, your old pal is doomed. So I guess you could say, Steve, that when we got past the what are we kind of grew up and became adults, and like you said, 40 years later, here we are. But I was thinking about that because here we are, death by adulting. That was an adultish decision when we got married. But for you, when was the point that you were like, I'm the adultiest adult in the room right now?
That's a good question. I don't know if many of us have a moment where you can just pinpoint and go, oh, that's the moment where I grew up. But I think I remember it actually very specifically. It was just, I think it's weird.
Yeah.
I think it's just really strange.
You are.
But I had already joined the Navy, right? And I had been in the Navy for about a year and a half. I had earned my wings. And so back to that picture with the two of us, I can't bring it up. There it is. Back to that picture with the two of us, there it is. Notice I've got wings on my uniform. That was the day they put the wings on.
That was the day they put them on, yeah.
So
that was special.
That was a monumental day in my life, the earning of my coveted wings of gold, right? And the neat part about that story is, and I get all kind of choked up when I talk about it, was that what you can't see off the picture is all of our friends were there. My mom was there. Our whole families were there. Everybody came down, and all of you pitched in money to buy me actual real gold wings.
We did.
Because the ones that they give you are kind of cheapo. They look gold, but they're not real gold. Those were solid 24 karat gold wings. I've still got them to this day.
An important point to make on that is I have never kept a secret about a gift in my life.
Right.
I am that person that buys a gift and
Right.
says, I got you a Christmas gift. Do you want it now?
Right.
But I kept that secret. You thought you were getting a bowling ball all along.
Okay. All right. Bowling ball, coveted wings of gold. Okay. Yeah, I did. I'm an avid bowler. I love bowling. And so I thought, honestly, that you got me my own custom bowling ball. Wasn't sure how you were going to do that since I didn't get fitted for it. You have to put actually your fingers in it.
It would have had no holes in it.
But, I was gonna love on you anyway and say, oh, honey, it's the best bowling ball I ever got. It wasn't the bowling ball. All right. But anyway, so your question was, when was the moment where you thought you grew up or or adulting happened for the first time? I had joined the Navy. I had got my wings of gold. I was on my first squadron, my first fleet squadron, flying an airplane called a P-3. It's a big 4-engine turboprop airplane. And we hunted submarines. And this is back in the 1980s. Okay. We were tracking Soviet Union submarines, real world stuff. And I wasn't qualified on that airplane. I had just gotten to my first squadron. We had deployed to Keflavik, Iceland, of all places. And we had done a mission where I got plussed onto a crew. I was the 4th pilot on a 3-pilot crew, okay? And so not qualified. And as we travel 1,000 miles north. We're way out there in the extreme conditions. It was very bad weather that night. And finally, the other 3 pilots just got tired. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and they decided to put me in the seat. All right. So they bring out the new guy and they go, all right, it's time for you to fly. Right. So they put me in the right seat of the airplane, and we descended down to 500 feet to track this submarine. And I looked over at the other pilot and the engineer who sits in between the 2 pilots. And the 2 of them are doing this. They're doing like that little bird that goes into the drink, comes back up. They're both falling asleep. Yeah. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm all excited. This is my first opportunity. And we're in this bad weather, and the airplane is getting beat up and buffeted, and the instruments are going like that in front of me. And I'm trying to, fly this thing. And I'm thinking there's 12 people behind me, and there's 2 people falling asleep next to me. And I remember that moment thinking, this is it. I'm the adult supervision, right? People depend on me. Their lives depend on me.
Yeah.
And I can see the instruments because they were all red. They have a red light on them at night, and I can see them all bouncing around still to this day. And I remember having that moment, that epiphany of I better grow up.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's an important moment for a lot of us, is that moment where you think, hey, this is it. I've grown up. Okay, so let me return the favor. Do you have a moment where you knew that you became an adult, or your first adulting moment?
I do. It's not as dramatic as yours for sure, but it has to do with that same deployment. Because we had bought our first house, 2 weeks before you left on deployment. Mm-hmm. I was on Young Life staff. I was doing a church partnership with Young Life, and I was in charge of all these high school kids. And we bought a house that was a duplex, but not like a side by side. It was a upper lower. And so it was just the 2 of us. So we took the little part on the 2nd floor, and we rented out the bottom part to a woman and her husband, and he had Alzheimer's. Mm. And so it was a older gentleman who needed help. He just needed help. And so you left on deployment on a Friday. I remember this so vividly. I drove you to the squadron. I said goodbye, see you in 6 months. And I drove back to where we lived. And I was planning the first activity with these high school kids. And being a Young Life leader, I had always had a partner. I had a young guy who was my partner. I had an older guy who trained me in Young Life. I never carried any of the weight of the responsibility of what went on with the kids. And for the first time, I was it. I had a couple volunteers to work for me, but I was it. And I was thinking, this is a big responsibility, these high school kids. And so Friday night, I spent all night planning. Saturday, I woke up and the renters called and they said, the duplex is flooded. We have flooded it. And I thought, okay. I was 22 years old at the time. I was really pretty young. And I went down and I waded through the water. The whole duplex was flooded. I waded through it, and it was coming from their washing machine. Now, I am not a mechanical sort, but I pulled out the washer and I sat down in that water and I got out some tools and I fixed it. And I put all the hoses back on and I turned on the washing machine. It didn't leak anymore. And I mopped up all the water and I cleaned it up, and I thought, I'm pretty capable, right?
Girl power. You go, girl.
I was feeling pretty good,
yeah.
For you. And so going through the day, all the kids showed up for the first Young Life Club. And my guitar player was there. Everything was going as it should. And I heard the smoke alarm go off in the duplex downstairs. And I thought, what in the world? And I went down, and they had set the duplex on fire. It was the gentleman with the Alzheimer's. He had turned on the stove, and he had caught something on fire, and it was on fire. And I got all the kids out of the upstairs of the duplex. I got the fire department called. I got the people out of the lower duplex. And I remember thinking, wow, I can do so much more than I thought I could do. Like, I don't know what's going to come the next 6 months of this deployment, but I'm pretty sure I can handle it, right? And obviously, there were things I didn't handle so well, like my student loan. But at that moment, I thought, I'm very adulty.
Right, let's not let that one escape, shall we? Let's talk, Megan, about the student loan payment.
In the long run, it worked out.
I'm talking now. I'm on the camera. See me right there?
I see
Let's talk
you.
about the student loan for a minute. Why don't you tell our audience what you did?
Is this like the cone of shame? So I had to pay the bills while you were on deployment, which again was a new thing. I had been in college. And so the first paycheck didn't go well. We got a 9-cent paycheck, but we figured that out. Very adulty here. And then it was time to pay the bills the second round. And I don't know how it had happened. Maybe I had a amnesia for a moment or something. I don't know. But I looked at my student loan payment, and instead of writing a check for the payment that was due, I wrote it for all the money that was in our account, which coincidentally paid off my student loan.
Okay, now I need to interject at this moment. I remember the first time, and it was about $2,800, right? This is back in the 80s.
Yes.
$2,800 was a lot of money. Still a lot
Paid
of money.
off my student
Still a lot of
loan.
money.
Yeah.
I remember the first time as an adult. This is another adulting moment. I remember the first time as an adult, I wrote a check for more than $1,000, right? So you write the date in, right? And then you write the pay to part, and then you write the dollar figure in, and then you have to write out 1,200. And I'm writing it out, and my hand is shaking so hard I can hardly write it out because it's the biggest check I ever wrote. How in the world did you write the next payment of $2,800 and not catch it at some point in that process?
Well, I don't know. I'm pretty well documented for how distractible I am. So I would say I was distracted, but I would also say it was the bounces heard around the world, because the student loan payment went through, but the mortgage and the electric and the phone and the water and the gas, yeah, they didn't so much. So fortunately, you were thousands of miles away.
I was 5,000 miles away,
Yeah.
and we only talked once every 10 days because it was $1.50
A
a minute
minute,
for
yeah.
a phone call, which was good. But you know, at the end of it all, 40 years later,
We lived through
we're
it.
good, and we lived through it, and our student loan got paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
So-
that was when I first realized that I was a pretty adulty adult. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. Well, very good. So that's when we both began adulting.
Yeah. But Steve, you mentioned a phrase in there. You said that really is kind of the essence of adulting. So I think that's a good segue into our second segment, which is that most important phrase in adulting.
Yeah. The most important phrase for me, at least in adulting, is the expression, you don't have to like it, you just have to do it. All right. And let me repeat that. All right. Because that's going to be kind of a cornerstone of what we do here at Death by Adulting. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. And honestly, 90% of life falls into that category. And now the story behind when I learned that lesson was I was a young lieutenant. And I just love showing this picture. So let's go back to this again. I was an ensign there, right, in that picture. But now fast forward about 4 years, right? Now, and I didn't put much weight on in the next 4
Yeah, I
years.
have to point out that
Right.
the wings are so heavy that you're leaning because you were so skinny.
They did weigh about as much as I did at
Yeah.
the time. But
Yeah.
so fast forward about 4 years in my life, and now I'm a lieutenant. I'm at that fleet squadron. I'm all qualified now, and I'm not the new guy, or I've been around for a few years. And I was been giving little bits of responsibility, actually large jobs to do and to carry out. And so one day, my supervisor, a lieutenant commander, the guy a rank above me, my boss, calls me into his office, and he sits me down and he goes, Steve, I want to say something to you. And I go, yeah, yes, sir. His name was Jim. And Jim said, Steve, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. You're dismissed. And I literally said out loud, I said, what? Right? What? And he repeated it. He said, Steve, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Now get out. And so I got up out of the seat and I kind of stumbled out of his office, and I was just dumbfounded. I was really annoyed by what he said. And I went around all day, talking to everybody. Jim called me in his office and said, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Now get out. And I was trying to incorporate everything that he said to me. And it wasn't, I wasn't comprehending right away. So I came home that night. Remember I came home that night?
I do remember.
And I walk in and I said, Jim called me in his office today and he said, Steve, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it, right? And then you put that smile right there on your face. That you do, that knowing smile that a woman has. And you looked at me, and then I thought, two people know something and they're not saying it to me. And Megan was smart enough not to weigh in. So I just had to kind of sleep on it that night. So I hardly slept that night. I got up early the next morning. I went into work. I got out of sight of Jim's office about 6:30 in the morning, waiting for him to come in. About 7 o'clock, he comes into the office, and I'm sitting there, and I said, hey, can we talk about, what you said yesterday? And he said, yeah, Steve. He said, I intended to follow up with you today. He said, I wanted you to sleep on it. He said, but since you're here, let's talk about it, right? So I go and I sit down in his office. He said, look, Steve, he said, here's the deal. He said, when you get given a job or a task or an assignment to do, he said, when you eventually, keyword, all right, eventually get around to doing it, he goes, you're brilliant, man. He goes, nobody can touch you. He said, you do an excellent job every single time. He said, but, okay, here it is. But in that first 5 minutes after you're given a job or a task or an assignment, you just kind of go off with how you feel about it. And he said, Steve, I don't know if it's a surprise to you or not, but nobody around here cares how you feel about anything. And then he said the most profound thing that stuck with me all these years. It is the essence of adulting. He said, Steve, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. 90% of life falls into that category. And when you begin to think about you don't have to like it, you just have to do it, and all the things that fall into that category, it's shocking. The changing diapers. Okay.
Yeah, never liked
it. If and when you have kids, changing diapers, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Paying your taxes. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Setting the alarm and getting up and going to work. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Paying your bill. Blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. And honestly, what I thought before he said that to me was somehow I either had to think whatever it was my idea, or it had some merit, like you had to prove to me why it was important, but it didn't have to be any of those things. I didn't have to agree with it. I didn't have to find any merit in it. It didn't even have to be my idea. Basically, what he was saying to me, and he didn't ever say this, but my application was, Steve, shut up and do your job.
Yeah.
And you know what? Life actually goes a whole lot better when you just shut up and do your job. And there's jobs that we can embrace and jobs that we can have fun at. A lot of fulfillment in life comes from getting plugged into something bigger than ourselves. And all of that stuff is important life lessons for adults and in adulting. Yeah. So the title of this program is Death by Adulting, right? We want you to avoid death by adulting by embracing really the fun that making adult decisions are. Because when you were a little kid, right? When you were a little kid and you were 4 years old and somebody said, how old are you? You never said 4 years old. You always said to them, I'm 4.5 or 5.5 or whatever it was. Why? Because you wanted to be considered older, more mature, more responsible. What happened to that dynamic? At some point, you get into your teen years and then maybe beyond, and some of you are lingering into your 20s and 30s, and you still haven't embraced that adult world yet, and you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
Because it's challenging, it's hard work, but it's exceedingly rewarding. And so, again, that's a whole nother thing for another episode. We'll get into that at some other point in time. But you don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Now, give me some examples from your life of you don't have to like it, you just have to do it.
Sure. And really, children don't live this paradigm. If children don't like it, they don't do it. They throw a temper tantrum. They refuse. Even teenagers, I don't like it. And nowadays, teenager doesn't like it. Mom's going to go in and say to the teacher, they don't have to do it, right? But it is the essence of adulting. And it doesn't matter what season of life you're in. So like now, I work full-time for our ministry. And there are things I love to do. I love to write. I love to teach. I love to disciple. I love to counsel. I hate doing social media. But in this culture, if we want to thrive and we want to reach our audience, I have to do social media. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. Now, as a mom, I had the freedom, because of how hard you worked, to stay home. I was a stay-at-home mom. I homeschooled my 8 kids. And again, there were things I loved. I loved reading out loud. I loved playing games in the middle of the day. I didn't love vomit. I didn't love picking up a child and sniffing their bottom. I didn't get a degree in college to do that. It felt below me. But you don't have to like it. You don't have to do it. Or you don't have to like it. You just have to do it.
I think they offer that in college now, butt sniffing 101. Yeah, I think that's a thing.
Yeah. But we'll talk about this in another episode. Really, the core of you don't have to like it, you just have to do it is a change in attitude to I don't have to do it. I get to do it. I get to do it, right? It's not I have to, because we could have the freedom to say, I'm never going to do another thing I don't want to do. But when we embrace it as, I don't have to do it, I get to do it, it changes our whole attitude about it. And so you mentioned we are, death by adulting. But why are we death by adulting? Well, we have seen in our counseling ministry, and all of the studies are bearing it out, that this is one of the most unhappy cultures in history. There's more anxiety disorders, disassociation, people who are lonely, isolated, they feel left out. That's across the board. People in churches who feel left out, people in communities, people in school who feel left out, people in their sports, they go to their kids' sports team and they feel like I'm the only parent that's alone. And something's wrong. And I think really what it is this. I think we're so busy being the star or the main character in our own drama that we have lost the truth that we are just supporting cast in the bigger picture of what God is trying to do in our world. And when we lose that picture, we lose the impact we can have on the world.
Okay, so say that again, because that was really profound. Repeat what you just said to me again about the supporting.
Okay, so we're so busy focusing on being the main character in our own drama,
right,
that we've lost the bigger picture that we are the supporting cast in what God wants to do in the world. We're thinking, am I satisfied? Am I being taken care of? Is everyone looking after me? Am I being taken advantage of? Is it fair what's happening to me? Instead of having that attitude of, God, what do I get to do to have an impact on this world?
Those things that you just listed will wear you down.
Oh,
right. You wonder why there's so much depression these days, right? Just always focusing and worrying about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
When the greater satisfaction honestly comes from investing in the lives of others, being others oriented.
I think the rise in high functioning anxiety has a lot to do with, if I'm anxious that I'm not being taken care of, that's a continual thing. And it is. It's exhausting and it's stressful and it's depressing.
Okay.
And that's where we are. That's where we are as a culture, but we don't have to be.
Okay. Wow. That's really good stuff. We might just quit right there.
Yeah. So let me kind of sum it up. Because if I could sum up what we really want to do here at Death by Adulting, it's this. We want to help you make decisions today that you won't regret tomorrow. Let me say that again. Because these me decisions that we're making that are causing such angst and anxiety in our life are not decisions that we're happy about tomorrow. But we want to help you make decisions today that you won't regret tomorrow. And Steve, flesh it out. What does that look like?
Well, I think for me, decisions that I make today that I won't regret tomorrow, as you get older, I think hopefully you get better at that.
Yeah.
But not necessarily.
Yeah, I was going to say not every older person.
And I think a big part of why you and I wanted to do this podcast is we wanted to invest in younger people.
Yeah.
Not in a placating, talk down to you kind of way. You kids are all messed up. Not that kind of way, but almost in a way of saying what you just said, which helping make decisions today. If you could have a fast forward button, or if you could look at you 40 years from now and say the decisions that you made 40 years ago were good decisions and you were satisfied with it, that's great. When we ask people the question a lot, would you go back to being 20 years old, right? And when we ask that question, many times the answer is, oh, no, I wouldn't go back to that. And then people stop for a minute and they go, well, could I keep my 60-year-old brain and go back to my 20-year-old body? Yep. All right. And then the answer is, yes, absolutely. Be physically fit, no pains, no aches and pains, but still have the wisdom of age and the vitality of youth. Yeah, sign me up. Okay. That's what we want to be. We want to be, all right, here it is. We want to be your on-demand old farts. Okay. And if you want to have an old fart moment where you just kind of fast forward into the future and go, tune in, right? Listen to what we're going to say. And at that point, I'm going to say to you this. If you've been with us this long and you've liked what you've gotten so far, do us a favor, right? You know what I'm going to say next, right? Hit the like button, subscribe so you don't miss any of our content, and share this with other people, right? Because we think that the content here is invaluable. And if you've made it this far, you agree. So throw us a bone and do that for us.
Yeah, and we're not just bringing experience. We are bringing a lot of experience. We've had a lot of experience in every area, military life, deployments, adoptions, large families, homeschooling, all those types of things. We put a lot into our education.
Right.
But we want to bring you our failures as well as our successes. And I think sometimes what we see with public figures, which is what we are, is it looks like a shiny utopia.
Right.
And the truth is we've had at least as many failures as we've had successes. But the only true failure is if you don't learn from it and if you don't teach it to the younger generation.
Right. So for me, the simplest way to think about what you just described is we're going to invest in a vertical relationship, okay? And don't get scared off by that, right? Because the greatest wisdom of the ages came from God through the Bible, right? And so we shouldn't run away from that. We should actually embrace it. And so we're going to invest in the vertical so that we're better at the horizontal. Okay, then that's vertical is the uppy downy, honey.
Yeah, I don't. Right? When I get tired, I don't go get vertical.
No, you get horizontal. All right, Megan has a problem with that. Okay,
also left and right.
And watch this. So which is left, honey? Show the camera. Yeah, show them lefty loser.
Lefty loser.
Right, righty tighty. Okay, very good. Okay, just want to make sure it's girl left or boy right. I don't know, it's something like that. All right, very good. So. Now we're gonna wrap it up in our final segment for the podcast today, and we're gonna do something called "Who Even Thought That Was a Good Idea?" So let me set you up with this, and I'm gonna call on you first. Who thought that was a good idea, Meg?
Daylight savings time.
Daylight savings time. Oh,
yeah. I have to tell you,
that's a good one.
Thought daylight savings time had been canceled. Like I saw it on the internet. I actually think one of the houses voted to get rid of it and the other just didn't vote. But when it happened again this fall, it was like soul sucking to me. And I don't even have little children anymore because you know what daylight savings time is, right?
Yep.
Daylight savings time is time for children to absolutely destroy the family dynamic for 48 hours.
Yes, it's awful.
Yeah, because they're tired. They can't sleep when they should. They're up earlier than they should be. And, if I could give you an adulty tip, because it's going to happen again. We're not that far from it happening again. It is the ultimate. You don't have to like it. You're going to be forced to do it. So just prepare ahead, right? Try and get some extra nap times in there, segue that bedtime a little bit so that it isn't quite so devastating on the entire family.
Well, there you have it.
Daylight savings time.
Yeah.
Cut it out, man.
Who even thought that was a good idea? I think his name was Ben Franklin, but
probably.
Oh my word.
Probably.
All right, honey.
All right.
What about next time?
Okay. Well, before we get to next time, I want to leave you with a boss tip way to win at adulting. And there are ways to win at adulting. Sometimes it seems like adulting is going to crush us, but we can win if we plan ahead a little bit. So this is a simple boss tip, and trust me, don't hate at me in the comments because this works. I want you, before you go to bed, to take 5-10 minutes and empty your kitchen sink and clean it out. It seems like such a small thing, doesn't it? But it's really not. If you wake up in the morning and your kitchen sink is clean, you're ahead of the game. And especially you moms out there, if you come out to dishes in the sink, you're going to start your day discouraged. So even if you're tired, just take a few minutes, throw them in the dishwasher, wash out the sink, and when you come out in the morning, you're ready to take on the day. You're the winner, not the dishes. So that's your little boss tip for this segment, for this week.
You can be the boss of the dishes.
You can be the boss of the dishes. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, scrub like a boss.
There you go.
There you go. Like all right, I like that. Yeah, that's good. That's working for me.
I like that too. We came up with so many happy slapper things and we didn't even
I know. It's fun. The slapper jokes are good.
We were going to be happy slappery ever after. But since we're past that, why don't you tell us what comes next time?
I would love to, but it has totally escaped me at this moment. So I'm going to punt that back to you. What are we doing next time?
Next time.
Oh.
It's going to be really, really good.
Really, really good. No, we're going to capitalize on that theme of you don't have to like it, you just have to do it.
I think we're really going to talk a lot about the things we get to do as opposed to the things we have to do. Because you know what? It's a lot of fun to get to do things.
Right.
It's kind of stinky to have
That's
to
a
do
great
things.
way to put it. The things we get to do as opposed to things we have to do.
Yeah.
It totally will change your frame of mind.
Yes.
And make those things much more, happy slappy?
Happy slappy.
Happy slappy?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But one of the things I have to do now is end the show. And so thank you for being with us here at Death by Adulting. I'm your host, Megan, with my co-host, Dr. Steve. And remember, when it comes to adulting, what doesn't kill you
Just makes you tired.
I